First time making it like that, so coming some slack. But anyway, let's get into the actual stat showcase for the build. Alright, so getting into the stats for this build, I actually have two separate builds depending on your race. Now, the first one and the one that I use is with Con. In order to have this build completely perfect, you have to be Con, because the stats are really specific, as you can see here, of 88 medium, and all stat points are used. So you'll see this with a lot of spear builds. Stats are pretty specific here. But if you don't have a Con slot, there is another build that I have here that's pretty similar, except basically just without Ice Eruption, and forward to post Shrine to get more HP. So yeah, pretty similar from the stats here, as you can see, but also a pretty solid option as well, especially if you're not going Spear, since Ice Eruption is way better on Spear than the other medium weapons, but still good on all of them, I'd say. And in case this needs to be mentioned, this is a PvP build, so these stats are optimized for PvP specifically, although it is okay in PvE, but would not recommend it for that. But besides that, I'm currently running 6 Vitality, 4 Erudition, and 2 Song Chant. Your traits are pretty much up to preference, especially after the Erudition nerfs, but I would recommend going 6 Vitality since that's definitely the meta right now. But yeah, with Erudition and Song Chant, kind of customize that however you like. If you notice yourself running out of Ether, go more Erudition. But if you're doing fine, you can always go more Song Chant for more damage. That's pretty good as well. As for the boons, the only one you really need is Steadfast, since that's the only one that has a big impact on PvP. And here you can see the pre-shrine stat order. It's pretty simple since you don't really go that many stats for shrine of order, but it might be helpful, so here it is. And also, I'll put up the pre-shrine talents that you need to get as well. Make sure you do not miss any of these talents, since that will negatively impact this build for sure. But you can totally get all this without Scrapper pretty easily, so it shouldn't be too bad. Although if you really want to min-max this build, you'll probably have to reroll it at the Shrine of Chance. However, for the non-min-max build, that's optional and you can level up before using Shrine of Order if you need to. And I'll quickly go over the talents. Some notes are that this is a Spectre Path build, because Spectre Path I think is pretty good on Spear, since Gale Dash is synergized really well with the weapon's crit. And also, that being said, make sure you pick up the Gale Dash talent. That's really good on this build, going Spear, but also on other medium weapons as well. So as long as you can learn all the tech, Gale Dash is really good on this build. The other talent that I like to mention that you should really get in this build is Bear Trap, especially if you're going Spear on this build, since Bear Trap is what makes Ice Eruption viable, which I'll get into more in the mantra section. Now moving on to the mantras, I'll briefly go over these mantra choices that I made. These aren't really set in stone. You can go different mantras if you want, but this is a very good setup, so let's go over it. So first up we have Gale Lunge. Now Gale Lunge, everyone knows about it. It's really good for chase, and especially on this build with Spear or other medium weapons as well. So yeah, definitely go Gale Lunge. Put a Wind Gem on it if you want. That's what I go with. You can go below this, but Wind Gem's good too. Now Heavenly Wind. Heavenly Wind is a pretty solid mantra in my opinion. It's really good for attracting people, since you can aim it wherever you want when you're in the air. So if someone's running around the place, can be useful for catching them, but really it's best for fainting, which you can check out my Heavenly Wind masterclass if you want to learn more about. But I think it synergizes really well with some weapons, especially weapons with ranged crits like the Purple Cloud, but it does take some skill to use properly, so you can change that if you want to. Now Ice Eruption. This might surprise some of you that I'm using this, especially after the nerfs, but it's really underrated with specific weapons, because there are still some use cases where you can get a guaranteed to hit, most notably Bear Trap. So if you're going Spear, Bear Trap is really good on it. And if you hit him with your crit, you're almost guaranteed to land Ice Eruption. It's possible for your opponent to avoid being hit by Ice Eruption after you hit them with your crit, but it's very hard, because after you land your crit, your opponent is stunned by Bear Trap and not able to roll. So if they don't attack you first or do something weird, then Ice Eruption is guaranteed to hit. So most builds I would not recommend going Ice Eruption, but this build specifically has really good synergy with it. And also if you're not using a Spear but something like the Purple Cloud, you can use it after a guard break. So still has some use there. And even past that, it's also good against Silent Hearts, because you can use the Ice Eruption during the Silent Heart Mani Kadi, and it's unavoidable unless they have a Lodestar proc on you, which won't always be the case. So it's a pretty good monster to counter Silent Hearts, which I struggle a lot with, since the meta top champ in NA West right now, which is my region, is Silent Heart Fist. So this is a nice thing to have if you struggle with that too. We have Radiant Kick. Main note for this is Dawnwalker, so you should definitely be running Radiant Kick. And also, if you're not going the variation with Ice Eruption, I recommend going Radiant Dawn instead, since that's a pretty solid monster in the current meta as well. And also be sure to run Radiant Kick. Everyone knows this. Dawnwalker's best mantra right now, really. Super good, super quick. You should totally run this. Very good with chase as well. And also Rising Wind. Rising Wind is definitely one of Gale's best mantras right now, even after the nerfs, because the combos with Rising Wind are so good, super strong. So you really should run Rising Wind. Definitely a top tier mantra if you know how to use it properly. So you definitely want to learn how to use it, and definitely you should use it on this build. Next up is the Wind Passage. Wind Passage, pretty good mobility. Might as well put it in for the mobility slot on Gale, since you have the option to. Put perfect lenses on it so you can go further. And it actually does a decent amount of damage, so I'm currently running a Bloodless Gem on it, but you can always run a Wind Gem or something else on it if you want. Summon Cauldron, don't really mind this. I just have this to draw right now. You should probably run Enforcer Pool or something else instead. That would be a better option in my opinion, but yeah, definitely. I mean, don't go Summon Cauldron. But yeah, moving on, we have Astral Wind. Still pretty top tier even after the nerfs it got a little bit ago. Put Rush Shards and Drift Shards on it to make it go faster, and a Bloodless Gem for healing. Since it does a lot of damage, you can easily reach the cap. Very good mantra, not much needs to be said about it. And Master's Flourish. Master's Flourish is really good for combos, which this build kind of emphasizes a lot on, and does a lot of damage, and the ship is pretty nice against people that hold up a lot too. So this is what I recommend out of the medium mantras, but you can run something else like Prominence Draw or Twin Cleave, something like that. It's whatever about the preference, but Master's Flourish is a pretty good choice. And be sure to put magnifying glasses on it to make it bigger as well. And moving on to the equipment, I won't really go into too much detail on this since I haven't perfectly min-maxed it yet, but I'll go over the important stuff that you should really know about real quick. Now, the weapon I currently have equipped is the Purple Cloud since I've been trying that out. It's pretty good on this build, but I also run Spear a lot in this build, particularly the True Seer Spear, because the chip is really nice on it against F holders. If you equip it, you can see it has 40% chip, which is a lot. So if someone's holding F against you a lot, they really are going to be taking a lot of damage. So this is really underrated. But besides that, the crit is really strong, so that's really the main reason besides that. As I said earlier, synergizes well with Bear Trap and Ice Eruption, but even if you don't have Ice Eruption, it's also good because there's lots you can do when your opponent's stun and Bear Trap and can't roll. So Spear is really good in either build that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, of course, Purple Cloud as well. You can also run Shadow Katana if you want, but I wouldn't recommend any of the maces right now since they're not super good in the meta. And also be sure to run Solar on this build, since Solar is really good for making sure they can't get out of your combos. Especially now that Rising Wind can be vented after that change, Solar is even better. Make sure you can get that secured, guaranteed, almost damage. So yeah, super powerful enchant by the way. Basically what you do is you just M1 summon and vent after you apply Solar, and it removes all their tempo. Super annoying to fight against, but very, very strong to use. So I highly recommend using this enchant, but if you don't want to use Solar, you can also run any of the other meta ones like Blazing or whatever, Deferred, you know, something like that. But Solar, definitely the best pick in my opinion, so try to go for that. Besides that, for the enchants, I haven't been maxed out yet, but be sure to go with Multiplicity on at least one of your pieces, since this is the most important one and the best enchant in the game right now, really. Basically just gives you free healing when you get hit, so you really want to be running this. Very good for sure. And as for the rings, pretty much run whatever, but make sure you go with the Kong's Clutch ring, since it really helps with mobility, and it's definitely worth it. Try to get 2 posture on the ring if you can. I only have 1, unfortunately, but I'll definitely get 2 posture one eventually. And yeah, that's really the most important stuff for the equipment that you should know about. And lastly, I'll go over the summary. You will notice that the HP is pretty low, but that's because this is really a glass cannon type build. So I prioritize offense with all these mantras, all the talents and everything. So that's a part of the reason why this is pretty low HP. Also pretty high posture, which is important right now in the meta. So yeah, it's a little less than you probably want. And also my equipment isn't great. You can probably get this up to like 520 if you get better equipment. So this build really isn't as squishy as it might seem, but it's also sort of a consequence of going Fortitude pre-shrine. But you really have to in order to get all the stats you need. That's sort of how it is when you invest a lot into your weapon stat while also going to entombment. But like I said, pretty high posture. You want to go a lot of posture these days to avoid being destroyed by attunementless people with strong left. You kind of have to, so definitely go for that. Okay, so that's pretty much the build right there. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be sure to answer them in the comments. But yeah, this build definitely does take a little bit of skill to use properly, but it has lots of potential with the combos with Ice Eruption, or if you don't have Ice Eruption, with Rising Wind and everything, all the mantras. So yeah, overall, this build has super good synergy with Bear Trap and the crits and everything, so it should be pretty good. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.